Hello and welcome to Landscape Photography World, the podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your host on this show, talking to landscape photographers about their motivations, likes and dislikes. Andy Hutchinson, a Hertfordshire-born landscape photographer based on the South Coast of New South Wales, joins me this week. With over 30 years of experience, Andy's passion for photography became serious in the last 15 years as he combined his love of nature with a growing dedication to his craft. His photographic passion began with an Instamatic camera, processing film in his family's bathroom, which eventually led to formal training in film development and a career in journalism. Since moving to Australia in 2006, Andy's been captivated by the diverse beauty of the South Coast of New South Wales, an area where beaches, rainforests, cliffs and pastures converge. His work often reflects the spontaneity of his shoots as he embraces unplanned moments to capture the region's unique landscapes. We discuss the influence of landscapes on his creativity, the role of photography in mental health, and the evolving challenges of a professional photography in the era of AI. Known for his dedication to documenting fleeting moments of natural beauty, Andy provides valuable advice for aspiring photographers and an inspiring perspective on pursuing one's passion. I hope you enjoy the show. G'day Andy, welcome to Landscape Photography World. How are you going?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Grant. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. It's a nice sunny day up here in Sydney. Where are you based? You're
Yeah.
down the South Coast, yeah?
Very cloudy, overcast, blowy, and cool.
Let's get into why we're here. I want to talk to you about your motivations and why you're a landscape photographer. What is it about landscape photography that makes you go, yes, this is what I want to do with my life?
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to just answer that
Yeah,
question?
go
What
ahead.
motivates me? Several things, actually. Suffered with sort of mental health issues all throughout my life, and just going out into nature, into the landscape was really important for me for a long time. And the kind of photography just sat neatly alongside that. And then it developed into its own thing. I've been taking photographs since I was about 10 years old.
Yep.
Uh, and, there've been periods of like 2 years or something where it's dropped off the radar a little bit, but it's been pretty consistent throughout my entire life. And
Yeah.
when I was much younger, I had my own dark room in the family bathroom. When I was
Oh,
13, I bought my own enlarger and everything. I used to develop my own black and white prints. So it was an obsession, actually,
yeah.
when I was a kid. And yeah, it's a mental health, but it's also in later years it changed and it just came about this capturing these kind of microseconds of time that nobody else is capturing, that nobody else would see if you weren't there at that moment, pressing that button at that time. That's what I like about photography now, landscape photography, along with the kind of the mental health stuff. But
Sure.
yeah, it's that uniqueness of it, capturing this thing, and if you weren't there, nobody would be any the wiser. So it's a couple of things. Yeah,
Cool. What's influenced your photography most throughout that period?
I'd say where I lived because
Yeah.
I was brought up in Hertfordshire, sort of North London,
Right.
and then moved to the southwest of England to Bath and the Cotswolds. As soon as I got my degree at college, I got a job with a publishing company in the southwest of the UK,
Sure.
and and it was all about location. And when I was in the UK, sorry, in Hertfordshire, it was very kind of industrial and stuff like that. Shooting even bombed out stuff even then in the 70s and 80s. And then when I moved to the Cotswolds, obviously, it's a beautiful part of the world, and it became about photographing the amazing landscapes around there. And
Yeah.
then 20 years ago, when we moved to Australia, it changed completely. And I lucky enough to live in such an incredible spot. I think where I live is unique, actually, and
Mm.
incredibly unique in terms of the variety of landscapes I've got within 50 kilometers of my front door is just incredible. I defy anyone to improve. I can expand on that later on if you like, but
Yeah,
I
I'm
defy anyone
really keen to get into
to
that.
compete with what I can talk about here, what I can do, what I can shoot
Yeah, yeah.
landscape wise here. So yeah, location, and mood.
Yep.
Sometimes you've got to be. Photography goes on and off the boil for a lot of people. They talk about losing their fojo, and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't really impact me greatly. In that it drops off completely, but it's definitely there's peaks and troughs for
Yeah,
sure.
well, I want to come back to that a little bit later about how you deal with that. But first off, what you said about location, that's always something that's interested me is it definitely influences what people shoot.
Yep.
For some people, it also influences how they shoot. Do you think that's true for you?
Yeah, I would say that's true. Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you're shooting the Cotswolds, you're going to go for that kind of dreamy, soft
Yep, yep.
thing, 'cause that's the vibe.
Or
But
Autumn filters.
exactly, yeah, 100%. Beautiful, hazy English landscapes, rolling
Sure,
hills,
sure.
honey-colored cottages. But here, it's brutal. It's
Mm,
way more dynamic, way more contrast. 100%. Yeah, totally changes. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and the thing with me, photography is when I stick a camera up to my eye, I've always got in the back of my mind, I'm like, what is the vibe I want somebody to experience when they see the photo?
sure.
And that guides what I'm photographing, often more, excuse me, than the scene itself sometimes. What I mean, I don't stress too much about all the conventions of photography, the rule of thirds and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I think, what is the mood? And if the mood means that I'm going to have the horizon in the bottom tenth of the frame, then so be it.
Yeah,
So I think that's what I think when I look through the viewfinder or back of the camera.
yeah. Okay. So one of the things you mentioned was the ups and downs. How do you stay inspired? How do you keep the creativity flowing?
I don't think you can force it. I just think you've got to go with the flow. I think you
Mm.
just have to accept that there will be periods where you're super busy and you're going gangbusters and your Instagram feed or wherever you post is just full. And
Yep.
other times where you don't want to get up at 6 in the morning to go have
Yeah,
fun.
I know those times.
It's just the way it is, and you just have to roll with it. I think the problem is when people fight against the trough, when
Yeah.
they try and they compensate for it with new gear or location or something else.
Mm.
I say just roll with it, accept it's going to happen.
Yep.
The dude abides.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Um, do you have a process for setting creative challenges for yourself? Do you plan a lot of your shoots, or is it more, okay, I'm just feeling it, I'm going to go out and shoot what I see?
I'm a complete anarchist. I don't plan anything.
Cool.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely nothing. Even when I mean, I'll qualify that slightly. Occasionally, I'll get wind of like as a supermoon, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at that kind of stuff. I'm the absolute polar opposite of the meticulous planning photographer. And when I'm out, I don't, it's all instinctive. I just shoot, shoot, shoot. What catches my eye? What is it? When I was looking that way, what caught my attention? That's what the way I work. And yeah, when I get even I don't even know if I think there's going to be some nice cloud, I think it's going to be a nice sunrise or a sunset. I don't even think too far ahead on that. Often when I get in the car, I don't know
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to go. But as I said, I'm happy, lucky enough to live in a place where there's a huge amount of possibilities in terms of location, a very short distance from where I live. And so I don't really have to. I think if I lived sort of back in North London or something, then I would probably be a different character. But I'm afforded the luxury of not having to plan too much here and still be in an amazing location.
Yeah. Fair enough. Let's talk a little bit about where you are and let's dive into that. You said that it's one of the best places on earth. I'd certainly concur within, what did you say, 50 Ks or
50
something
Ks,
to
yeah.
where you are? Yeah.
Yeah.
So describe that for somebody that's never been down the south coast in New South Wales.
So, well, let's tick them off the box. So you've got your white sand. Let's do coast first. I say you've
Sure,
got
sure.
white sand, rock, yellowy, gritty sand. Okay. Take your pick of sand for a start.
Yeah,
Okay. Then you've got your so Jervis Bay, you've got your beautiful white sand kind of holiday postcard style locations,
yeah,
but also you've got incredibly dramatic. You've got Cathedral Rocks,
yeah,
um, or a Bombo Quarry. It's 15 minutes drive from my front door. And you've also got amazing cliffs at Point Perpendicular, the biggest cliffs on the East Coast, towering above the thing, and all the wildlife associated with that too, if you want it. All the
yep,
whales and dolphins and all that kind of stuff. So that's just the coast. So you've got the pristine white sand of Jervis Bay, the rugged interior of Jervis Bay on the heads of the bay. You've got Bombo, Cathedral Rocks, and the sort of traditional kind of wild beaches in the Murrumarang National Park. Depot, pretty, pebbly, just stunning, beautiful, just wild beaches. Probably
mm,
my favorite location actually on this whole entire stretch of coast down there.
yeah,
And then so nudge it a little bit inland, and you've got cutesy kind of rural towns, Berry, Kangaroo Valley, take your pick.
yep. Lovely
You
green rolling hills, very
know,
Cotswoldy without the
exactly,
buildings. Yeah,
exactly. Very pastoral. You want to shoot pastures and all that kind of stuff, and cows in fields, fill your boots. That's all here. Then you've got some heights. You've got all the escarpments, so you can go
yep,
up and shoot the viewpoints. You've got drawing room rocks, which for my money is hands down the best scenic lookout on the East Coast. And I've done pretty much all the famous ones, everything.
yeah,
And I think drawing room rocks is chef's kiss. It's just incredible.
yep,
And then a little bit further inland from that, and you've got all the waterfalls, and you've got Fitzroy Falls and
yep,
Belmore and Carrington and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, you've got these enormous national parks. Morton National Park is the size of the whole South Wales. It's the
mm,
same size as South Wales. I was explaining this to my family back in the UK, trying to give them an idea, and nobody's ever heard of it.
yeah,
Morton National Park, where's that? I've never heard of it. And it's the size of South Wales. It's huge, massive, and you've got incredible places in there.
yeah,
Pigeon House Mountain, or Dithor, as we give it the proper name, and all the incredible canyons, and yeah, just everything.
yeah, fantastic.
Did I get it across?
Oh, I think so.
Do I
Yeah,
win?
the passion's definitely showing through.
Hmm.
When you go out into those locations, what is it that you're looking for? Or is it just reacting to the light and to what's in front of you?
It's definitely always a reaction. What's inspiring about this?
Mm.
Uh, and it doesn't have to be exciting. It can be tranquil too.
Sure.
You've got some beautiful misty scene with a few trees poking through, and it can be that too. But yeah, and people talk a lot of crap about the photographic eye, but I think that there is definitely something that is innate in people about what works as a composition. And if what you're seeing caught your eye and you can find something in there that works, if you can picture it boxed in a frame, whatever ratio, then take the photo. But I also often I'll just bloody wing it. Well, honestly, some of the guff from people about making photographs and all that kind of stuff, and all the stroking the beard, and I'm going to do this and the other. Certainly, I know on YouTube, where I'm quite active these days, there's a lot of after the fact compositions going on. Do you know what I mean?
There
They've
you go.
taken the photograph and then they give you the explanation. Come on, who are you kidding? So I'm not afraid to say quite often, I'll just put the camera down low and fire the shutter button and see what I can get. Why not?
Yeah.
Cameras are capable of doing it. I might pre-focus with a bit of back button focus just to make sure that's all squared
Yeah.
away. But other than that, why not? Wing it, see what you get. It's just space on an SD card.
Yeah.
I started with film. I love it. I would never go wholly back to film, but
No,
yeah,
I'm the same. I started in the film days, and the weight, because I didn't have the ability to have the dark room.
yeah,
I did a bit of canister developing in the early days, where you actually have the little canister and you roll the film up and you pour in your whatever, and doing the I
yeah,
would
that's
do
it.
my negative sometimes, but yeah, actually then getting a print out of it, and didn't have the wherewithal to sort that out, so had to send it off to the chemist or wherever, and I hope the film lab knew what they were doing. And
That's right.
occasionally there was one out of several hundred shots.
That's right.
Back
Well, I mean,
then.
if you talk about any photographers, one of the problems people come into photography and they're inspired by other landscape photographers. So they look at all the photographs and think, I can never do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the perception, due to social media and the world we live in, the way with the web and everything,
Mm.
is that they're just taking those photos, that those are the ones they're taking, and
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah.
I don't see the 499 out of the 500 that were crap, or not crap, but not that
Not
good.
good enough. Yeah,
And that's one of the huge issues, I think, that people go in and expect this level of perfection. Oftentimes, it's I absolutely hate the saying right place, right time, because it completely demeans a photographer's experience up to that point to take the
yeah,
photograph. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And obviously also the planning that might have gone into getting the shot as well for people other than me. But sometimes there is that quixotic, that spark that just happens. It does just happen. There's a spark. There's a moment. My favorite photograph of all time was that. It was a spark. Probably not something I'll ever see or photograph ever again, but I was really glad I was there and had that shot and it was right and it was sharp.
yeah, yeah, yeah. One of the things I've noticed is and this goes back a little bit to some of the planning versus reacting and so forth, is the trends that you start to see in social media. And personally, I actually try not. So the comet, whatever the name is,
Yeah.
then or whatever, I haven't shot it, haven't tried. Uh, there's plenty of other better astrophotographers out there that have made some amazing shots, and I'm enjoying watching them, but I've just got no interest in hitting those up.
Yeah.
What are those sorts of things in your sort of sphere of photography?
Trends.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of trends.
I kind of thought you might not be.
No, I just, no, I'm the antithesis of that absolute polar opposite of it. I think that's typified that, what you're talking about, by these themed Instagram feeds where they, it's almost like robotic. I'm not
Yeah,
saying they're AI, but it could just have been generated by something camera on a cart that went there and applied a preset to it.
yeah.
So you have these perfectly manicured. I like the ones where every bloody photo is different. Where there's a landscape, a sunset, and a daytime, and a forest, and everything, and it's all
Sure, sure.
nice and different. I just hate those perfectly manicured, curated feeds that all the bloody YouTubers were on us about doing. Oh, this is how to get your Instagram feed watched. Well, who gives a shit? You
Yeah.
know, what's the end point of bloody Instagram anyway? What are you hoping to get out of it? What is the purpose of it? Some meaningless dude in Idaho gave you a love heart on your photograph. Oh, happy days. My day's complete. I can go forth
Well,
into the world.
for some, it is advertising revenue eventually. If you
Yeah,
get
yes.
those aspirational heights of 10,000, 20,000, 100,000
Yeah,
followers.
the shilling digital watches and
Yeah, that's right.
Smoothies, yeah, yeah. No, I don't aspire to that at all. But
Mind you, I wouldn't mind being a hotel and resort influencer occasionally.
yeah, I don't know about that. I know a few of those guys, and
Yeah, same here. I couldn't do it.
doesn't appeal to me. Geez, not at all. That's one of those things. I think it's a bit like being an air steward or something like that. That if you go before you go into it, you might think it's but you know,
Yeah. It's like photography. Everyone goes into photography with that theory or the mindset that, oh, I'm just going to wander around the world daintily and find beautiful compositions and push the button and
that's
everything,
it. Yeah,
everything.
but no trends. I'm definitely not a fan. The whole like the orange and teal look. Just no, no. I'm not
So
into
if
that.
someone asks you, and I am, how would you describe your style?
No, I don't. I think I have five actually main stars.
Okay.
Don't ask me a name on the top of my head, but I can picture my Lightroom catalog and imagine them. But I would just say with mine, there isn't. It's just a vibe. Yeah, honestly, I win if when someone looks at it, there's a mood that comes through. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm so incredibly lucky to live where I do, and I also want to share that. So there's quite a lot of that. That kind of evolved into a bit of work for tourism agencies and stuff like that through the
Sure,
photography.
sure.
Because I don't know if you guessed yet, but I'm autistic and get quite focused in on certain things and
Yeah, yeah.
processes. And that's certainly when I first moved here, I went through a period where there probably isn't a location within, I'd say, 150 Ks of here that I haven't photographed. Not a single one. You
Yeah,
know, I'm not saying every tiny inch of foot.
sure.
All of those spots, all of the beaches, all the lookouts, all the towns, all the villages, and a lot of places in between that I discovered myself because I
Yeah,
get quite obsessive about it, which is helpful sometimes and not in others.
yeah. I've got to admit to a bit of an obsession with photography. I wouldn't have started a podcast about it, and I wouldn't be going out and doing it as often as I do if it wasn't an obsession. So
Yeah,
there's definitely worse obsessions out there.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. What's the worst outcome of this? You spend a bit of money on equipment and you get some nice photos for the wall.
That's
I'm not
it.
saying these are, this is my son's bedroom, but yeah, a lot of that is think for myself, would I like this on my wall?
Yeah. In terms of trying to communicate, you said you want to share where you live and you want or the area around there, and you want to communicate a feeling.
Yeah.
How successful do you think you've been, first off? But what is that feeling that you are trying to communicate? Is it the feeling of the moment or is it the feeling of the place?
I would say it was 100% place.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think moment is more the influences kind of thing.
Yeah,
To
right.
kind of tap into some so that somebody can key into that sort of young lady in one of those hats on a beach with a shawl over her shoulder and a pristine picnic, you
Sure.
know, uh,
Or the red jacket in a mountainous landscape. Yeah.
all that. Yeah. But no, for me, it's definitely place. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've got a pretty encyclopedic knowledge now of down here, and I can tell like instantly. I love it when people try and play coy with where they photograph stuff because I know I can spot them instantly.
Yeah.
I did a gig a few years ago for Shoalhaven Council. They were doing this promotion called the 100 Beach Challenge,
Yep.
and I was in the very fortunate position of being asked to do the photography for all of that. So I photographed. There's
Nice.
actually 107 beaches in the Shoalhaven, but seven of them are pretty shitty. They're like a car park. On the northern side of Ulladulla Harbour, there's a beach
Yeah.
which but I did them all so that they had them for their archives and stuff.
Mhm.
But and that was a really interesting project because think about this. Yeah, so I've got to find a way of photographing these so that somebody can look at them and go, "Oh yes, that is." I've got to make it as easy as possible for the person that
Yeah.
sees that photograph. Oh yeah, oh that's Murray's Beach, and that's Himes, that's Honeymoon, and it's not easy sometimes. There's quite a bit of similarity between these beaches, and you have to find a unique way of photographing. But my photography was all about that. It was definitely all about place.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
There's not a massive amount of difference, say, between Vincentia and Husky Beach.
No, not much. No, no. Certainly a bit more on price, but
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And a little bit more in terms of how many people are on the beach at certain times of the year, too.
yeah, that's it. And I'm an incredibly antisocial photographer who I will, if I, not just to the public, to other photographers as well. If I
Sure,
go
okay.
to a location and I see other photographers there, I'll just get in the car and go. I've got no
Really?
interest. Yeah, yeah. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind having a chin wag and a socialise and all that kind of
Sure.
stuff. I just, yeah, I just like my landscapes free of people.
Yeah,
So I like to be, if we're all there photographing the same thing, I don't quite see the point. Yeah, we can all put our spin on it. We've all got a slightly different camera and different lens, and we might be shooting different way, maybe stacking or something like that. But it's
yeah,
basically the same scene.
yeah.
I have no interest in that.
Yeah, I get that. Though I've noticed occasionally when I have shot with other people, you can have sort of four people within 20 meters of one another and they will come up with something completely different, you
True.
know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely true.
It can work, it can work both ways. You know, you can all shoot the same thing, or you can go, oh, there's a stone over there that just looks really interesting, so I'm going to focus
That's
on.
it. That's it. But the worst thing about that is if that happens and you, why didn't I think of
Yeah,
that?
exactly. Yeah, you go, oh, I got
Kicking
FOMO now.
yourself for the rest of the week. So I
That's
removed that possibility
it.
that somebody's
Exactly.
going to do it better than me.
Yeah. In terms of the choice to become a full-time photographer, what, tell me a little bit about that story of how that happened and what was in your mind when you
Uh,
made that jump.
it didn't. It was just an evolution.
Yeah.
All my life has been like that. It's just been happy accidents. I was a club DJ in the UK for about
Right.
15 years, and that was accident. I just happened to move to the southwest of the UK in 1990. The house music thing was kicking off, and I
Raves,
was going out to raves and
24/7.
stuff like that myself. And I loved music, and I was obsessively collecting all these records. And I was working at Future Publishing in Bath as an editor of magazines and stuff. And I didn't want that company to be my only kind of world. And so I started working in a pub, just shits and giggles. In fact, I was paid in beer. I didn't even get a wage. I just did it to have a different circle of friends and stuff like that and do something slightly different. And the guy that owned the pub, we'll get to the point of the story, trust me.
No,
Um,
no, fine.
guy that owned the pub bought a club, and he spent so much, it being Bath, that he couldn't actually afford a proper DJ. So he turned to me and he said, Hutch, you've got a lot of records. You can be my DJ. And so I literally did that. I stood there in front of 200 people on a Friday night, having never DJed in my life. I'd had half-hour lesson with a friend of mine who knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
That was it. And I did it for 15 years. I was all right at it. This was in the days when DJs actually DJed and responded to the mood of the crowd
yeah,
rather
right.
than playing a tightly edited, studio perfected mix,
Yeah,
which is what happens now most of the time. Not all DJs are like that, but I say the vast majority were. Um, and it was all just an accident. I happened
yeah,
to have the records. He happened to ask me, and the photography was the same kind of deal. I just started taking photographs here. They started getting a little bit of notice, and it just picked up and snowballed. And before you knew it, I was earning a crust. It's not my full-time job though these days because
Okay.
there's no, there's not enough money in it. And I took my foot off the pedal with the print sales because I just found it was so much effort for so little return. Scraping a living, but it was so many people who want to, they want something special. They want a specific quote for something, and you've got to go,
Yeah.
yeah, printer and la 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 la, and it's back and forth, and then it's a bit too much.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. No, I hear you on that. I guess
Mm.
I want to delve into that a little bit. What's the one thing that you've learnt from running your business that you could share with somebody that wants to get into photography full time?
It's that you can't earn money from one thing. You're not going to earn money selling prints. You're just not. Ain't going
Yeah.
to happen. None of them. Even the really successful studio photographers like Cole, what's his name in Bondi, Eugene Tang,
Yeah, Eugene. Yeah, yeah,
and people like that. He goes off and he's paid. Kudos to the guy. He was back and did it from beginning, but he earns. Obviously, he's got a successful gallery and print sales there. But if you look
yeah,
what he's doing, he's going out and doing advertising work. He's working for brands and doing all that kind of stuff, and that's where he's earning his money. So
yeah, yeah.
you have to have multiple revenue streams.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. Whatever you can do. I'm lucky in that I made myself a kind of nice little niche with the tourism agencies down here and became known as a kind of a guy on the South Coast. I'm not saying I'm the only one. There's
yeah,
some
yeah,
brilliant photographers locally, and Jervis Bay and places like that, and Warren up in Wollongong and people like that. But I got a name for the Shoalhaven, and people would come to me and say, "Have you got this photograph?" And that rolled into work for real estate. So well, pretty much every real estate company in the whole, 50Ks have got my photographs on their website and stuff like
yeah.
that. So,
Nice, nice.
yeah, and also suing people's really good.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah, sign up for Pixie, and
yeah,
yeah, yeah, that's
yeah. Find
amazing.
find all the people are pinching your images. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's a pretty seamless process. I didn't think much of it, but what they do is they take your Instagram feed.
yeah.
Isn't much use for me these days because I gave up on Instagram about 7 years ago. But they take your feed as your source of truth for your photographs, and they go out
Oh,
and look for all the uses of it on the internet. And if they find somebody that's not in China or the Philippines, then they'll sue them for you, for use of your
nice.
photograph. It's great if you're us about it. But I think, fuck it. If you've stolen my photograph, why should you get free use?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If somebody came and asked and
100%.
said, want to use this for an advertising campaign or whatever. For me, advertising, I charge a premium because
100%.
you're going to be you're trying to make money out of it, and you
Yep.
use my stuff for that. So therefore,
And
you're gonna pay for that privilege.
I did some shots of the bioluminescence in Jervis Bay. I was one of the first, I think it was probably the first photographer actually down that photograph. There was like three of us. I know now it's this massive thing and there's Facebook groups and all everything, but it was three of us. And we photographed them. And I was in the Daily Mail, National Geographic, and stuff like that. And ditto the other guys, Joe Paquette and Marie, I forget her surname, both in Jervis Bay. And those photographs are just everywhere. They're
Yeah,
like a virus, those shots I took of the bio. And I think I made about 8,500 US in Pixie suing people who've used them in travel brochures and stuff like that. Quite big companies.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
surprising. And you don't have to do much. You just say that you just tell them. And once they've, because also, fortunately for me, I went through a period where I was uploading a lot of that stuff to Flickr. And
yeah,
Flickr is brilliant for that. They also use that as a source of truth. And so all the date stamps or everything are on there. So you can
yeah,
prove of ownership and age and all that kind of stuff. And it's all just taken care of for you.
yeah. Nice.
But yeah.
I might have to look into it. I've never really bothered about it because I don't
You'd be
know if that
amazed.
has pinched them, but probably somewhere someone has done it.
It's quite a high failure rate. A lot of the time they'll try and sue someone and get
Yeah.
nowhere, but it's not on your dollar. You only
No,
pay,
that's it. They do all the
and they
work.
take their cut separately.
Yeah,
So there's
right.
a agreed price for the use of your copyrighted photograph,
Yeah.
and you just get the money, and then the lawyers get their cut. So I would say probably about 1 in 50, 1 in 100, maybe. I can't remember. I could look it up, but
Yeah.
sometimes comes through really nicely. Like an American university used one of mine in their brochure, and I got something like
Wow. Yeah.
$3,500 US
Yeah.
just for that one thing. And it would have been a lot more because they were going to put it online, which kind of greatly increases
Yep.
the value to me. But it was just in a print brochure, so it was quite a finite amount.
Yeah.
Uh,
Nice.
Pixie for the win.
Nice little learner then.
It's surprising. Yeah. If you've been doing this for a while and uploading your photographs for a while, you'd be amazed. Don't Everyone knows how far your photographs are.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And the funny thing was that I was sanguine about it. I accepted that was the nature of uploading to the internet. That
Yeah.
once
Well,
it's
that's
gone,
exactly it.
and that probably about 7 or 8 years ago, that was the point at which I stopped putting watermarks on my photographs because it just blemishes them. It
Yeah.
has no purpose. It's so ridiculously easy to remove, but you're not protecting it anyway. And it
Exactly.
was all part and parcel of that. So I honestly do. I accept when I upload it, it's out into the world. But if some stupid American university wants to illegally use my photograph, then I'll
Fair
come
enough.
here.
Do you ever
uh,
look, do you ever look back on your career and ask yourself if you would have done anything differently?
no, because as I say, it all just evolved. I'd like to tell you, I was one of these people. I had this plan, and I do meet young guys coming through and stuff like that that do like that, and I admire it
Yeah.
actually. Good on you for being clear in what your purpose is and how you're going to get there. But it was
Yep.
never like that for me. It was just something that my whole life has been like that. It's just been one
Nice.
thing merged into another thing. Happy accidents all the way along. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Sorry, what was the question again, Grant?
Would you change anything? And
Would I
clearly not.
change anything? I would have got into digital sooner than I did.
Okay.
I was very lucky actually because there was at one point I was there at the very birth of digital photography. I was working for the gadget magazines like Stuff,
Oh
uh,
yeah. Yep.
T3. I was freelance at that point, but they were just all coming out. The original Micro Four Thirds. It was all just brand new, all the way back to the original little Kodak digitals,
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
real potato cameras. And I knew that it was going to be big, but I think I probably would have embraced it a lot more in hindsight had I known just how stratospheric it was going to become.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bought Sony shares earlier.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm I'm pretty good at. I remember I was one of the very first. I think I wrote the first internet column in the UK in a magazine called ST Format. Pre-internet, it was when bulletin boards were a thing. I'd been using the internet because I did happy accidents again. I ended up doing 3 different degrees to various stages, dropping in and
Yeah.
out of college. But the first one I did was computer science. Yeah, I know, right? And that was so I was on the internet then when it was just the thing called Janet, the Joint Academic Network. So it
Yeah.
was
Right.
just all the colleges and the military and the government all hooked up by fiber across the Atlantic and stuff like that. And even at that stage, I was playing like multi dungeon games with people in Philadelphia and things like that. And I knew that this was the future without a shadow of a doubt. It just blew me away, the possibilities of it. And so when I got a job in magazine publishing, I went to the editor and I said, "You've got to be on this." And so I literally, one of the probably the first column in a magazine about sort of internet and stuff like that. And the very first pre-internet services that came on, like Prestel in the UK and
Yep.
CompuServe eventually when it arrived, and MSN. My username on Microsoft is Hutch. My Hotmail is Hutch
Wow.
because I was literally one of the first 5 people on that thing, and I could just pick it.
Uh,
So lucky to be in on the early days, and that's the same with the photography. Yeah, I would have definitely gone. This is going to be something.
yeah, definitely. Have you got a favourite spot that just keeps calling you back?
Yeah, yeah, I did a video about it actually. Excuse
Okay.
me, I don't want to pimp my YouTube channel, but I did a
Why
video
not? Go ahead.
exactly. I did a video on that exact subject that was called "Why I've Taken 15,000 Photographs in One Spot." That was the title of it. I think it's 15,000. I can't remember. It's a lot. It's
Yeah.
Druroa, which
Yeah.
is sort of 8 minutes that way from me,
Yeah.
just
Right.
where I am now. I live in Shoalhaven Heads, and Druroa is sort of 8 minute drive down a very
Nice.
coastal road. And it's the convenience. I'm not going to bullshit you and suggest otherwise because I can do a drop of a hat shoot. Oh my God, the sky's on fire. I never saw this coming.
I'm only 8 minutes
Go,
away.
you know, and I can and do leave the food steaming on the table in the evening if that happens. My wife will tell you I'm terrible. But it's just, I don't know, it's just, there's so many possibilities there. And I just keep, I don't know, it's just something about it. I keep returning to it, how it changes through the seasons in the summer, busy with families because it's such an incredible place for kids to play and be kids on the beach and enjoy that. So there's heaps of people for that 6 week summer period. And then there's days when it's literally me. But you could look in, not 5Ks because there's some houses not far behind you there. But
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
look at the beach, there isn't a single soul on that beach, nowhere. And it's just me. And I love those moments when it's just you and that and your
Yeah.
camera. Yeah. And yeah, and it's a great discipline finding new ways of photographing stuff
Yeah.
in one spot. What can I do differently? How can I shoot this? What can I do with the light, with the foreground interest? There's wildlife to photograph. What's the surf doing? Are there people here? There's all these questions you can ask yourself. And
Yeah.
it's honestly a great discipline. I told people in my little video I did, I said, don't beat yourself up about it. You
No,
know, if that's your spot and that's all you can do because you're working some shit awful office job and you come home and you just want to go out for half an hour with your camera, then just bloody do it. Don't worry about it. You
that's it. Yeah.
can't be in Hawaii, photographing volcanoes and stuff like that. Just work with what you got. And
So it's also one of the things I really like about the coast is that you can go to the same beach and okay, you might in certain periods the weather might not change a lot, but the weather's usually going to be different each time you go. The weather's going to shape the sand differently. The rocks are going to be covered or not covered with sand or moss or whatever. And there's places that you can go that every time you go, if you don't go every day, and if you do, that's great too. But
mm,
if you don't go every day, it's going to be different every time you hit it.
100%. Yeah. And sometimes it's just shit.
Yeah, that's right.
And you get shitty photographs. But at the end of the day, you've been out on the beach for half
That's
an hour.
right.
The
What's
cobwebs have
better?
been blown away. So who gives a shit? I hang on to all those shitty photographs as well.
Oh, same.
I don't delete anything. I can delete obviously the motion blur and forgot to get the bloody lens cap off. Obviously, I delete them, but
Yeah.
I've got 222,000 shots in my current Lightroom catalog, and that's after I had a catastrophic failure about 5 years ago and lost 180,000. Yeah,
Yeah. What's your most memorable photographic experience?
I think bio was definitely one of them, but
Yeah.
the big one is the shot I told you about the earlier. The shot was just those perfect moments, which is it was the weirdest thing. There was a thunderstorm coming over,
Hmm.
and I'm not a storm chaser by any stretch of the imagination whatsoever. But if one's going to drive over my house,
Yep.
then I'm in. And I saw on the radar this little storm, punchy little storm, just traveling perfectly in my direction. And it being about sunset, I thought, okay. So I hopped in the car, drove to Giroa. Of course, it was Giroa. And everybody else had the good sense to be no anywhere other than that because it was a really violent storm,
Yeah.
very violent, lots going on, a huge amount of sort of lightning bolts and stuff like that. I didn't have a lightning thing for my camera or anything like that. My technique for photographing thunderstorms was to leave the sensor open as long as possible.
Yeah.
Use
Give
a
it
very
30
high
seconds to catch
aperture
up.
and just keep on the old exposures rolling along. And that was how I was doing it. I had a 50mm lens on there. I was shooting on my Canon 7D2 at that time with the cheap 50mm, not the good 50mm, the cheap one, that
Yeah. Yeah.
plasticky Canon 50, which incidentally, is
Nifty
that the
50
best
minutes later.
value quality lens on the planet or what? How good's that little 50?
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
just stunning. And there was nobody, horrible weather, it was just me. And what happened was the sun was setting as the storm was coming up, and there was just the most unearthly orange glow. It's a sort of photograph that everyone think you're bullshitting, that you've
Yeah.
made it up, that it didn't look like that. But I did nothing to the photographs in post, nothing whatsoever, white balance or anything like that. It was all just
Yeah.
got this one shot where I got 4 or 5 bolts in one shot, including a massive one, which
Yeah.
hit the ground about 3 or 4 kilometers south of where I was. And I got the shot, and it's just this perfect shot. I called it Thor's hammer, and it's been my most successful print by some margin that people have bought it. And funny little follow up to that story was when I put it on social media and it went gangbusters, really went kind of viral. The head of the fire service here in Shoalhaven Heads messaged me and he said, Andy, was that such and such? And I said, yeah. He said, I think we put out a fire
Okay.
where your lightning bolt was. And so I said, have you got any photos? So yeah, so he had photos and we married them up. And I did indeed photograph the lightning bolt that started a bushfire that he then
Wow.
attended. Not a big bushfire, fortunately, but yeah.
Yeah.
And that was such a weird little thing that there it was. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. What about horror stories? Anything dramatic?
How long you got?
As long as you want to
I
take.
have. I said I was autistic. I also have ADHD, which means that I have no fear of stuff. Stupidly,
Fair enough.
no idea of consequence. Let's put it that way. Because
Okay.
I'm always doing stupid things. Drive my wife's life's been shortened by 10 years worrying about the stupid shit I get up to. But yeah, probably the closest worst one. I was shooting at Bombo, massive, biggest swell I've ever seen there. Insane, 100 fucking feet up, waves breaking. By the time they hit the thing, the spray was just like
Yeah.
huge.
I've
Loads of people down
seen
there,
it big there where it's coming up over the top of the wall there, and
crazy. This was
it's
the big.
scary.
I've gone down a lot, so it's the biggest I've ever seen it. So, I was loving it. I was shooting. I've just got my second XT4. The first XT4 I dropped in the river with no lens on it, like it was switched on. I'll tell you about that in a second if you like. But this was the second XT4, which I've not had long, and I nipped around to the sort of southern edge where you look back on one of the main gullies there,
Yep.
and I thought, oh, there's nobody down in that little bit. I can get
Good
some
reason.
shots. Um, so I wandered down there and excuse me, I think I'm going to burp in a second. No, it's gone. And sat on my tripod, and I've obviously watched for a little bit to watch the waves and everything, and it looked okay. And then this monster wave came in and actually broke over the top of the rocks there, which
Yeah.
are, I don't know, 20, 30 meters or something. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
mental. It came out. I was literally underwater. I was
Wow.
absolutely everything. And I was on slippery rocks and I came this close to being just flushed into that water. And that would have been game over,
Yeah,
100% game over. But somehow I wasn't. The camera and lens were complete write off because I wasn't, the camera's weatherproofed, but it's not. There are limits.
yeah,
The rain, but not this. So that was, yeah, that was real dodgy. Yeah, holy cow. That was okay. I should probably move up the cliffs a bit here. But I was just going to tell you so the first XT4 I got, I was doing a lens swap in the mangroves down on the river,
yep.
and I'd had the camera 8 days. I was so thrilled with my Fuji. I just switched from Canon to Fuji. I was so thrilled, and I dropped the bloody thing. I fumbled it, dropped the lens and the camera in the salt water. Just that's the horror story. I just felt such a beautiful camera. I was so gutted. It's such a lovely bit of kit. I thought, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't even the kind of, and obviously it was a financial thing too, although
Oh,
thankfully,
yeah,
sure,
definitely.
but still, oh,
Yeah. No, I know the feeling. I've fried the insides of my Canon twice, so
no,
it's actually had new guts, new brain, everything redone twice now.
yeah, yeah. I'm on my third XT4.
Yeah.
So far, this one's doing all right. I
But
use it.
that's seascaping. You can't do seascaping without risking your gear
Oh,
in.
that's it. I always say, if you're not getting wet, you're doing it wrong.
That's right. That's exactly. What has photography taught you about nature,
Just
other than
you,
don't stand in the way of a big wave?
yeah, just that you'll never. It wins.
Yeah,
Whatever the scenario, it will win. Never turn your back on the ocean. Never ever underestimate it. Even funny little things. I'm a hopelessly naive kind of British guy that had to learn about Australian climate, and I learned the hard way. So I did some incredibly dumb things. Like I
yeah,
remember I was asked to do a shoot for Shoalhaven in Murrumarang, actually, and I was out, and this was prior to the nice little path that they've just put in there.
yeah.
It was real dodgy track, actually, and I took one little water bottle like this on one of the hottest days of the year. I nearly turned into what was that TV doctor who died in?
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. I know the bloke you mean. Crete or somewhere over
yeah, that was
somewhere.
real, really nearly me. Just
Uh,
incredibly stupid. It's not massive. I mean, it's probably about 12 Ks or something like that to where I
yeah,
was back to civilization. But what was I thinking? Learned that about nature, I'll tell you now. But also expect the unexpected. Always be ready for the wildlife. Have a
absolutely.
plan B. So I've set up my camera now, my Fuji. There's a guy called Tech on YouTube who
Yep.
does excellent Fuji camera stuff, and he explained how to set up your camera so that you can do the back button, but with a quick flick, you're in auto tracking for the focus and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
right. Right.
The main shutter button is literally just the main dial on the front of the camera, which is incredibly useful. It saved me so many times because a wedge-tailed seagull will be tracking over, and you're like quickly
Yeah.
could go from landscape eagle and get the shot. So be prepared for that moment because you'll kick yourself. You'll
Yep.
work out your methodology for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about the storm shot where you did very little to it. What does your normal processing look like? Are you straight into processing when you get back from a shoot, or do you leave it to sit on the hard drive for a few months before you get into it?
And
And what do you look like when you're in it?
I'm one of those instant into it guys, actually. Yeah. The SD card goes in the drive when I get back. I've got a
Yep.
app on my Mac called Hazel.
Okay.
which moves all the files off the SD card into a date stamp folder on my main photos drive.
Yeah.
Uh, Tags on them and stuff like that. It's quite a sweet little app, actually.
Mm.
And then that evening, I'll fire up Lightroom and work my way through the shots. If what I do is I use a Lightroom more for the kind of asset management side of things,
Yeah.
but for the keepers, for the good stuff, I process those in Photolab 8
Okay.
because it's just better. You get more dynamic range out of a Fuji RAW in
Yeah.
Photolab, almost as much as a stop of extra light
Okay.
through the demosaicing in Photolab, in my experience. And they have the wide gamut color profile, which is just beautiful. They're just great with the Fuji RAW. So the keepers I do in Photolab, the ones I want to lavish a bit of attention on, and everything else I just do in Lightroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I don't take the high road when it comes to processing. Your photos, do what the fuck you want with them. Whatever appeals to you. Nobody
Yeah.
can tell you. If you want to stick a bloody rainbow in there, then go for it. They're your shots. Don't care about what anyone says to you about how photos should or shouldn't be.
I'm definitely 100% with you on that. If
Yeah,
somebody wants to do composites of 500 different shots and taken at
exactly.
different
Whatever
times, and
floats your boat. It's your
mate, that's really
photography.
boots.
Do
Yeah.
your thing. Do whatever pleases you. Yeah,
That's right.
100%. But yeah, sometimes personally, I are on the side of natural. I try and keep it as much as natural
Oh,
as possible. That's just the way I like doing it. Sometimes you can't. I love doing stuff like exposure blending with the drone shots and stuff like
yeah.
that, and you get very vibrant colors. But the thing is, the other thing you were asking me what my style is, and actually I should have said it's all about color.
Yeah.
100%. I'm not into kind of crush blacks and it's all about for me. It's like coming at you like some acid nightmare. And if I can do that naturally, like I did with the lightning shot, if it's oh my god, turn down the saturation or whatever, then that's it. But it doesn't mean I get into Lightroom, slide saturation right up to full. I try and photograph highly saturated scenes naturally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But as I say, don't let anyone tell you how to process your shots. Do your thing. Do what pleases you. Because the odds are you're the only person that's going to see them. Let's be honest. Very few people actually get their photos out into the world these days.
Yeah.
Very few.
No, definitely, definitely. One of the things we talked about again with the ups and downs, creative blocks. Have you ever experienced them, and what have you done to get around them?
No, I don't, honestly, I don't think I have. I don't know. I'm just wired to be needling away at stuff all the time. I think the
Yeah,
instant somebody tells me something, like if I'm being asked to photograph something, I've already try and work out what I'm going to do in my head. But if we expand it to, all the other creative stuff, creating content on platforms like YouTube, then
yep.
obviously look what everyone else is up to, and you don't rip them off, but it's often a
Oh,
source of inspiration. 9 times out of 10, it will just be some bloody shower thought, won't it? You'll be stood there and you'll go, oh, why haven't I done that? And thanks to my appalling sort of short-term memory due to the ADHD, I have a thing called Just Press Record on my iPhone for voice notes. And as soon as I think of something, I hit that and I record a voice note so that it's there and it does a little transcription for me that sends off to my Apple Notes. And then, so I guess the answer is I have a lot of stuff in place beforehand, so that if at some point I hit some low point, I can just go back and there's 15 million things that I've thought of that I can just tap into.
Yeah,
Keep
nice.
notes, keep copious notes. Just make yourself however you want to do it, whether it's actually in a notebook or on a computer or something. Just when you think of something, for God's sake, write it down. Because even without ADHD, we just forget this stuff and go, "What was that thing I was gonna? What was it?" And then you'll be kicking yourself. So
Yeah,
if you're disciplined about any one thing in your life, I would suggest it's that. When the inspiration strikes, bloody get it down.
yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough. I've got a bunch of questions now that I ask most photographers, and I swap and change some of them. But one of the key things I'm looking at is how do you see photography's place in society? We've talked a bit about following trends and all those sorts of things in social media, but in broader society, beyond the social media experience, there's obviously a place for photography. What do you see is photography's place?
I think photography has never, ever been more important than it is right now. We're at a flex point at this moment in time. Right now, we're living through it with AI,
Yep.
generational stuff, generative, sorry, stuff. And yeah, it's absolutely crucial because we're recording events, actual people, but I'm not against AI stuff per se. I'm against it when it pretends to be something it's not. If
Yeah.
someone come along and said this is AI generated landscape, then I could admire it and say that's pretty neat and stuff. But if they're telling me that it's real, it's a real scene, and that's where we're going to have a point of difference. And I think we have to 100% put something more substantial in place than the epoxy little content credentials, for instance, that they've rolled out now. This
Oh,
sticking plaster
yeah.
that's going to prove the authenticity. People talk about AI photography. It's not photography, is it?
No,
Photography.
absolutely not. I refuse to call it that.
Yeah,
I'm very wary calling it art.
yeah, 100%. But photography comes from the Greek word photon, which is
Yeah.
literally light. If there's no
Right.
light involved, if there weren't photons of light involved in the process of making that, then it isn't photography. It
Yeah.
just isn't. And all this fucking bollocks about prompt engineers and stuff. Come on. No, my aunt Granny could bloody knock these things out. Don't
Well,
pretend there's any skill involved in it. That's the thing that shits me more than anything, I think, when they pretend there's some skill.
you can leave it a blank prompt and it'll generate
Exactly.
whatever it wants.
Exactly. Now, believe me, I'm a geek, right? I've been all over this from the get-go. So I'm not
Yeah.
coming to this sort of thing, oh, I'm not touching it. I've had all the different models of how to on my computer, stability, diffusion, all the rest of it. So I'm fully versed in what they can and can't do and how difficult it is or isn't to do it. And there's so much bollocks talked about AI. And it's only going to get easier and better. And there will probably come this point where it is, even now, you can still spot it. There's something still about these images. You can still spot it, but I suspect that there will be a point there where they work out some secret source to introduce to it that gives it that thing that the human eye and the human brain can just detect that there's something off about
Yeah.
it. Go, and then we're in deep shit. And we have to find a way of validating actual photographs. They've never been more important.
No, I totally agree. The scary one that I saw recently, and it's not so much specifically on photography, was Adobe Premiere. You can have a scene now which, say you've got 10 or 15 seconds of footage.
Yep.
You can now drag a slider and that will then fill that to however many seconds, minutes, or hours that you decide. So it will just generate based on what was in that 10 or 15 seconds, what's coming next.
Yeah,
And to me,
absolutely.
that's
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, about think it was about 20 months ago when the very first models came out, when the first
Yeah.
GPT model came out, and Marcus Brownlee did that famous video about the astronaut on the horse and everything. And we all thought,
Yep.
well, that's amazing, but also shit. I did a little video on my channel that was called AI is going to kill stock photography and it's coming for your porn too,
Yeah.
which turned out to be my most successful video I've ever done, actually. I think it's about 170,000 views or something on it at the minute. It just went crazy because it was early days. It was,
Yeah.
and honestly, kind of stock photography had died on its arse a long time before that, to be honest. But I think what I said in that video, and it's 100% come to be true, is that whatever vestiges of that industry were clinging on by their fingernails, it was going to decimate. It's just gone.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, don't get me started on stock photography, though, for God's sakes. Yeah,
Fair
jeez.
enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
What do you see as the biggest challenge facing photographers right now? Is it that issue of authenticity?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say that was a big thing. We, those of us who call ourselves photographers, uh, we've seen our place in the world devalued because everyone's a photographer now because we've all got these things, these
Yep.
excellent little cameras on them. And I don't take away from that. I think it's brilliant that now everyone can take photographs and you're not missing out
Oh,
on it.
we're in an area that has never been as documented as this one.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? But yeah, I think it's just, it's almost self-flagellation being a photographer in this era, isn't it? It's you're just like the salmon swimming up the river waiting for the bear to be there to snap you. It's just to bang your head against the wall for a process. Nobody really cares. Uh,
Yeah.
and we're just happy, really, within our own little circle. Photographers know photographers and understand the vibe of it, the fun of it, the technical aspect of it, how rewarding it is, the myriad beneficial side effects of it for your mental health and your physical health,
Yep.
the possibility of actually making a little bit of money. There is still money to be made.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's changing and it's harder, but yeah, yeah, it's a weird time to be a photographer, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
The sales of cameras falling off a cliff, but apparently not for the super high-end cameras, which are never done better.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that actually really interesting that the top end is where things are shifting to. And
That's it.
I guess the reason for that is largely because the quality of the cameras that are now available in phones, your point and shoot market's almost dead.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And your entry level SLR or DSLR or mirrorless or whatever, the SLRs and DSLRs are just about dead. Though there's interesting stuff happening with people still doing film or taking film up and either extending the life of some old cameras, that vintage side of things, but also people getting into actually making new film cameras,
Yeah,
uh,
100%.
which I
Yeah.
think is quite cool.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The whole analog rebound. I was asked, I remember when the sort of digital stuff started coming into DJing.
Yeah, yeah,
I had a residency at a club, so I could leave most of my records there, but it was, you know, these crates of records, it was just hellish. And so as soon as the CDJs came in, I was all over it, and MP3s and all that kind of stuff. And I remember talking to someone, would you give a no? Anyone who'd ever carried a crate of records through an airport
yeah,
would never go back to that. They just wouldn't.
Yeah.
still got scars on my bloody hands from those record boxes. And I used to say the same thing about photography, that having come from that world and understanding the hassles of it, that I would never go back to it. But I've actually had a bit of a change of heart relatively recently about that.
Mm.
There's a company down here, I'll give them a plug actually, called, oh, I can't remember the name of them, Shutterstop.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, yeah, Katie Rivers and Andy Zakelli are the people who are running this darkroom, mobile darkroom down
Yeah.
here. I went along to their sort of first day, getting into the groove sort of day for them. And it was really good fun, actually. And they set you up with a camera and a roll of film, and you go
Nice.
out and just take some photographs, and you go into the dark room and you get the negatives developed, and you pick a couple out and you do some prints, everything. And I was thinking, oh, actually, this is quite an enjoyable thing. And my father passed away in February this year, and one of the items in his belongings was an old 35mm camera. And I was thinking, okay, maybe get some film and do it. So that's one of my little projects on the back burner. As soon as
Yeah.
the house is being renovated in a minute, we're all a bit in chaos. But as soon as that's all sorted, which will be fairly soon, I'm going to definitely get into it. But it's interesting that Gen Z, and that's my son, how they're into this stuff, the old analog stuff, how
Yeah.
interesting they find it, because they've never known a world where you can pause live TV and all that kind of stuff. They
That's
just
it. Yeah.
doesn't exist for them, and it's so interesting to them. I have a lot of time for Gen Z. I like them a
Yeah.
lot. I think I've got high hopes for this generation coming through. I think they're brilliant.
Same here. Same here. If you weren't a photographer, what would you be?
I don't know. Oh, homeless. I don't know. I don't answer. Maybe a writer. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I've got about 45, one third written books on the hard drive, and maybe I would have actually finished one of them and done that. And writing was the first good. I did it professionally for a long time. I was a journalist, magazine journalist for about 20 years. I like the written word. One of the things I do with my channel is I'm not very good at the kind of off the cuff videos. I tend
Sure.
to run on quite a lot, and it just doesn't come across very well. Um, so I started scripting them quite early on and reading them off a teleprompter,
Yep.
and it's certainly been hugely beneficial. My sort of background with the writing for doing
Yeah.
that. Um, yeah, occasionally I'll try and wing it, and even then I just think, no, stick to the script, mate.
Fair enough. Fair enough. What's the best and or worst piece of advice anyone's ever given you?
I guess it was like the whole, like, you can't take a shot until you've thought it through. I guess that you have to go through this kind of compositional process before you can click the shutter button.
Yeah.
Uh, and I did do that for quite a long time. I would sit there and think deep thoughts about things, and it just held me back. So I think that was probably the worst bit of advice. And also, we're all gear tragics as well, and there's a lot of gear envy that goes on, and the grass is never greener. You know,
No.
it just isn't. And people, we think switching, change things. It's not, because it's still the same
Well,
human
the
behind the
best gear
camera.
won't necessarily make you the best photographer.
No, no. But having said that, going to Fujifilm was certainly the best decision I've ever made in terms of
Fair
equipment
enough.
in life by a mile. Really wish I'd done it sooner. But
Yeah.
yeah, having just destroyed my own argument. But yeah, just there's a lot of gear envy. I remember looking when I first got, so the first proper DSLR I got was an old 550D.
Yep.
And I just had the kind of the kit lens on it, and I just remember being very jealous of the red band. I wanted a red
Yeah.
band
Yeah. Yeah.
lens. Oh my God, he's got a red band lens. He must be great. No, some of the best shots I ever took were on that 550D with a kit lens.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I had the, I don't know if you remember the, I think it was the 10 to 17 or 10 to 18. I'm not sure. Zoom.
yep,
Some of my favorite shots from that era were shot on that thing, and it wasn't the cheapest lens in the world, but it also wasn't the most expensive. But as I say, the clarity that I could get out of it and the quality of the image was good enough. And
yeah. It's kit lenses come in for a lot of shit, don't they?
well, yeah, everyone said, "Oh, it's just a kit lens shot," or
Yeah,
even people saying, "Oh, it's just a phone shot." No, it's a well composed,
yeah,
contrasted, or whatever,
yeah.
well edited
The old
shot.
gear cringe. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
only taken on, so it doesn't matter. You
no,
know,
that's right.
yeah. I mean that shot I was telling you about with the lightning that was on that
As long as you're not shooting
$100
a
50
photo,
mil
you're
in.
doing okay.
Best shot I've ever taken. $100 50 mil.
Yeah, that's it.
It was just it was a good shot, right time, and it was just nailed it. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Bad advice, blimey. I just one of all compositional stuff. I think maybe there's a tiny bit of merit when you're first starting out with the rule of thirds and stuff, but people just religiously stick to this. And you look at it and you think, yeah, you got that on that and the
Yeah,
horizon.
don't put your horizon dead in the middle. Why
Yeah,
not?
all that. No, just maybe there's some value in these kind of these rules and stuff like that, but honestly, just feel your way, just experiment. You know,
Yeah,
you've got this amazing experimental device in your hands and do whatever you want. So why be constrained by some 40, 50, 60-year-old advice? I think I looked it up quite recently. It's actually really old advice, the rule of thirds, isn't it?
oh,
I
absolutely.
can't
Yeah,
remember. It's a long, like 100 years ago, maybe, about that rule. I'm like, oh, can we just get over it?
definitely.
Yeah.
We need to start wrapping up and finishing up. Otherwise, we'll keep talking for a little while longer. Are there any photographers out there you think I should be getting on the podcast?
I don't know. I looked him up actually, and it was just one of the locals. What's his name in Jervis Bay? Jordan, who
Okay. Yep.
popped into my mind. There's a guy who takes amazing astro. What's his name? Cresswell. Um,
Aaron Cresswell, is it?
Something like that. Can't remember. I've been following him for donkey's years, and he's just
Yeah,
the best. I think it's the best astro in Australia, actually.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
mind-blowingly technical stuff he does with panos, where I don't know what magic he works. My panos, don't matter what I do, they're all banana shaped, but he just works some magic with that, and they just terrific.
yeah,
And doesn't go too crazy with his astro with the kind of the clarity. He's happy to leave a little bit of the haze in there that
yeah, yeah.
sells it.
Yep.
Because I think that's with the Astro, one of my problems with a lot of it is that it just looks too developed. I say I don't mind how people develop, but if it cheapens it slightly, then I think
I do know what you mean.
sometimes it just seems a bit AI, a bit CGI.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's just the right side of that.
All right, fantastic. Thanks for that. I got the last question for you, and for some people, it's the most important one that I ask. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
God, no, it's an abomination.
Okay, fair enough.
You're not. No, no. I like the old meat feast. No, no pineapple allowed.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Thank you so much, Andy. It's been really wonderful having some time to talk to you and getting to know you and your work better.
No, thanks for
Uh,
inviting me, Grant.
where can people find your work?
It's primarily YouTube. Andy Hutchinson photography on the tube. Yeah, I gave up on Instagram, like I said, many years ago. It's just an echo chamber. But I think there's interesting stuff happening on YouTube. All sorts of people doing cool stuff. Certainly down the shallow end of the influencer zone, like people like me.
I know.
But yeah, YouTube. I have a Facebook page, but you know, don't put much stuff on there. Occasionally, I'll stick a photograph, just Andy Hutchinson photography on Facebook. But yeah, it's mainly the YouTube. That's what I'm up to.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Andy.
No worries. Thanks, Grant.
Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work and this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com, along with prints, photography gear, and my 2025 calendar. I'm also on Vero, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.